Are you in the mood for a fantasy adventure? The HBO original series, The Nevers, is debuting and brings together a large cast of characters who find themselves with special abilities. Should this new series be on your watch list? This is an epic tale following a gang of Victorian women who find themselves with unusual abilities, relentless enemies, and a mission that just might change the world. The Nevers is a fantasy adventure that's created by Joss Whedon. HBO was kind enough to allow me to see the first 4 episodes of this 6-part season. I've watched them all to give you a better idea if it's worthy of your time. I'll be staying away from spoilers so it won't ruin your watching experience. The overall premise for the story is that 3 years prior to the story taking place, a large group of people in London all of a sudden find themselves with new abilities. They're now referred to as the Touched, and these abilities are wildly varying in nature and helpfulness. Some are pretty cool, like the ability to control fire or see the potential of electricity. Other powers, they're a little less obvious in their usefulness. There are a lot of characters introduced in the first episode, some of which become the main players in the story. We meet Amalia and Penance, and they're really good together. I liked their banter and their timing as they worked off of each other. There are also characters named Malady, Frank, Annie, Myrtle, Augie, Swan, and the Beggar King. We really are introduced to a bunch of characters in this first episode, but unfortunately, we don't get a lot of introduction, background, or development on most of them. In fact, the first episode, despite being an hour long, really asks a lot from the audience in terms of trust and acceptance. It asks us to trust that more information will come, and if we just accept what we see right now, more will be provided that helps the story to make sense as well as building out some more of the characters. I really do think that's a big ask for this show. As I was watching, first, I had a lot of trouble even knowing who was who and why I should care about any of it. Then, as some events unfolded and drama began, I had to struggle to become engaged. Now, just because a scene was exciting doesn't mean it's building out a compelling story, or one that makes me believe it has a point. As I watched more episodes, the story did begin to come into its own, and it built out some more of the characters. I began to see a little of the motivations, but still didn't have a massive understanding of what the point of the show was. I can see the beginnings also of a social commentary within the narrative, but the show is barely scraping that surface. So if it really will be addressing some issues, it's going to have to hone in a lot. Now, the setting for the show is put together rather well. We get to see some grittier sides of London, but also see the opulence and grandeur of the privileged class. I do think that the show could pull out a little bit to show us more of the scale of the dirtier side. I mean, we spend some time with characters in locations that are seedy, and it would be good to see how much it actually encompasses. Seeing an alley or a dark and dirty dock is fine, but to show how much area is actually that way would really help to build out the world even better. There are some action sequences in this show that I really enjoyed. There's quite a bit of hand-to-hand battles, and they're done in an exciting way, and I like that we get to see the movements. The camera isn't pulling away at every punch so that the action gets lost. There's also a sci-fi or fantasy element in this where we have a bit of a steampunk feel to some of the contraptions and the scenes. And I like that addition to the story because it allows for more weirdness, but without it being out of place. If they've set the stage that fantastical things can happen, when we see fantastical things or even futuristic ideas for that time period, they still work within the world that the story is set up. So after seeing the first 4 episodes, I do have the sense that some things are not being addressed to the level they could be, especially given that this season is only 6 episodes. There are a lot of things introduced or shown in episode 1 that are really intriguing, but they don't really come into play for the next few episodes. As far as the overall story goes, it does build a decent narrative. I felt that episodes 3 and 4 really began to give us more meat to what's going on and started to grab me in a way that I was finally interested in the mystery that had been teased the entire time. If you watch episode 1 when it gets to the end of that episode, you may want to tap out. I mean, I kind of laughed when a particular scene began because I don't think I was ready for what it showed, and it definitely made me roll my eyes. I mean, I was pretty much just saying out loud, "Oh, okay, this is what we're doing? Huh, okay." For me, the first episode by itself is not enough to want to continue the show. And while I like some of the characters and even the intrigue that is being created, it doesn't give enough to build out everything in a satisfactory way. It's overly ambitious in what it's trying to unveil and ends up hampering a lot of the storytelling by not giving us the details we need to become invested in characters and want to keep watching. I do think, though, as a binging show, this is better. Each of the first 4 episodes are right around an hour, and they move along in an okay fashion. There are parts that did drag on a bit, but then the show would infuse some excitement to re-up our engagement. I think also if you binge several episodes at a time, you'll get more of the character arcs and development that is largely missing from the first episode. There is a little in that first one, but it's not enough. I was really looking forward to the show after seeing the trailer. The fantastical world that was being shown looked exciting, and the story also looked to be mysterious. So I recommend not watching week to week, but giving it at least to the second week and then binge episodes 1 and 2 together. I think you'll find it more satisfying and even compelling. There's a bunch of sex, nudity, and profanity, and some brutal violence. I give episode 1 2.5 out of 5 couches, but I give the first 4 episodes together 3.5 out of 5 couches. So have you seen any good fantasy shows lately? I'd love to know what you saw in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris, this is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.